Sports are more than just a competition and a trophy. Sports are a portal for everyday people to pursue their wildest dreams on some of the world's largest stages. My name is Riley Sager, and I'll be taking you along with me as I hear from SBC and VSL alumni who pursued a career in the business of sports. In this series, I will sit down with guests to discuss strategies for entering the sports world and what you can do to differentiate yourself in the industry. From playing to coaching to broadcasting, the common denominator for any job in sports is the ability to push oneself to become a master at their craft while connecting with others who share that same passion to be great. Let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of the SBC Audio Experience. Today, we are excited to feature Joel Garcia, a dynamic VSL alum and the Director of Player Development for the Westchester Knicks. Joel's journey in the sports world is a testament to his passion and commitment to player growth and team success. Starting out as a standout player himself, Joel has seamlessly transitioned into a vital role where he focuses on developing talent and fostering a winning culture. With an eye for talent and a strategic approach to player development, he is dedicated to helping athletes reach their full potential, both on and off the court. In today's episode, Joel shares insights into his career path, the challenges he's faced, and the strategies he employs to elevate his players' skills and performance. Join us as we dive into this experience and learn how he is making a significant impact in the basketball community. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this conversation. Joel, welcome to the SBC Audio Experience. I can't wait to talk to you about your career and background. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to get started. So right now, you're Director of Player Development and Video for the Westchester Knicks, the New York Knicks G League team. But you're also a VSL alum, and you actually played basketball in high school and college. So walk me through that decision to continue playing basketball, but then also adding in an art history degree.
So when I went to South Kent Prep School in Connecticut, played basketball there. My entire time there, all I was thinking about was just basketball. I didn't know what I really wanted to do. And once I was getting close to graduating, my mom was saying, all right, you want a business degree? And I said, no, I'm not really into that. And then as a kid, I was always artistic, painting, ceramics. So she said, try art. So I started doing art, and the art part released some stress from school as well from basketball. So art played a big part into my basketball career. And it like every time I was having a rough game or I was just stressed, I would always go to art. And if I was stressed from art, I was always able to go back on that court and just work out and just release stress from those two topics. Mm-hmm. So then, is
that something that surprised you?
Yes, because I never thought I would have been an art major. So that really surprised me. But just learning that one can help another. So basketball can help me with art. Art can help me with basketball. That was something that just blew my mind. I was like, oh wow. So it was just a perfect fit for me. And I just continued with art, graduated with an art degree, as well as still played basketball. And then after I graduated from college, I played in Croatia with a USA select team for a year. And then from there, I haven't done anything much with art lately after college. It's been just basketball. But I know for a fact, like if one day I'm stressed out from work, I can go do a painting or something like that.
What led you to the decision to continue having basketball in your life, even if you weren't playing, like pursuing a career in it, but then also holding on to that passion for art? Because video, it very much relies on art and your ability to storytell. So how did you decide to create a career from both of those?
So once I was done in Croatia with the USA select team, I knew I wasn't going to continue playing basketball. So I said, how can I stick close to the game? And in that business, there's so many different roles that you can do everything in the NBA or G League in the basketball world. So you usually start off as an intern, which that's what I started with the Capital City Go-Go in DC. And I was doing a lot of front office stuff. So using Excel, a lot of film like scouting, and I wasn't really into it. So then once I went to Westchester, they gave me the video job. I learned that through the summer. I made sure I know how to do anything with video. I learned it in one summer. and I got the video job, and then I was able to like it's like making a mixtape kind of, but you get to put some artwork in there, like graphics. Like if I'm doing a film work for a player, I usually like to add their picture on there with a stat, make it nice and clean, and then they'll film and I trim it. And so it was just using my creativity to make the film more like fun for him, because sometimes when players, like especially the younger players, when they watch film, it's boring when it's too much, and they tend to lose track. So I make sure like we talk to each other and make sure that they're enjoying it and it's creative too. So
in addition to having the graphic elements when you're giving the players these film, did your background in art help you decide different perspectives, different angles to catch?
Not really. Just the only time I really think about now with my role where I use my art skills is just using my creativity for the film work. So,
okay.
The art that I used in college was more of like painting and ceramics, but that I still use that for stress. Like I still paint with my mom sometimes when I come from work and I feel like I'm stressed out, or we're coloring, drawing. So I still use that. So.
Walk me through your typical day. So either like a game day or what your role includes.
Okay. So we're getting ready to start training camp. So like, for example, for today, I got into work. I have a list of the players that I'm going to work with, focus with the most. I make sure I watch film on them before I work out with them so I can know what kind of player they are. And I start, as I'm watching film, I can catch the little things that like their weakness, and I'll write it down and say, all right, so I'm going to focus on this. But as I'm doing that, my head coach has a way that he wants to play. For example, we minimize the mid-range shot. So if I have a player that's a mid-range shooter, I'm going to have to find a way to tend for him not to take those shots. So we focus a lot on shooting threes, off the dribble, a lot of defense. So I will make sure I write that down in my workout. Once that's done, if I still have some time, which I love about my job, I'm able to just go in the gym and work out. So I work out with some of the coaches, the assistant coaches. And then after that, we get ready for practice. We walk in, since it's only training camp right now, well, optional workouts right now. We work out with the players for 45 minutes. From there, the coaches meet. We talk about each player, and then we just move on to the next day from there. And it's usually like that. But for a game day, we meet in the morning, because we always have shoot around. We meet in the morning. We're going to talk about, depending on who's scout. So if it's my scout, I would have film work ready for the coach, all the coaches. Also a fast scout sheet, which is basically telling you about the other team individual players and what kind of plays they run. I'll introduce it to the coaches in the conference room. Then the players are walking in. We'll watch film all together as a team. And if it's my scout, I show them my film and I tell them a little bit about the other team. So I see it as like, basically, they don't know anything about that team. So every little detail matters to them. And then each player matters as well. So I'll break that down for them. And then we go to shoot around. So we walk through plays that the other team plays, usually the plays that they use the most. And then we get shots up, and then everybody goes back home, and we come back later for the game.
Were you always detail-oriented like that? I mean, I guess doing art, that probably helped. Or is that something you kind of learned once you got this role?
No, I'm very detailed. Like, I like to make sure everything is specific, because it helps me as well. Because sometimes I can get lost, and if I look down and I have it nice and neat, I can catch myself sometimes. That's the one thing you want to make sure you do. You know what you're talking about, and then you're on point. Because then if the players feel like you don't know what you're really talking about, they're not going to really have confidence in you. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you build that trust with them besides paying attention to the details and putting your best effort in?
From the start. So one time, like for example, today I met one of our players and I told him a little bit about myself. Nothing to do with basketball. We just had a regular conversation. I talked about myself, where I'm from, my career, because to some of these guys, they look at me and I'm still young. So they're like, what is this guy doing here? And then I tell them exactly everything I've gone through. And then I also tell them a little bit about like who my mom is, which helps a lot, because then they're like, okay, so you grew up in the business. Because I was probably 5 years old running around in the locker rooms in MSG when my mom was working. So I've been around basketball my whole life. So I tell them a little bit about that. And then I ask questions to them, like I want to know more about them. so that I can know what kind of player I'm working with. And usually that always tends to click. And then I also tell them like what to expect. Like I'll say, hey, so since we're working together, I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to try my best to make sure that you move on to the next level. And usually that always works because I make sure I always have their back. And then I'll text them too and say, hey, great job. Make sure because some of these guys, they're far away from home. And then they don't have anybody to talk to. So I'm basically putting myself like as a best friend for them.
Yeah. Is it hard to balance that on-court relationship and then mentoring them off the court?
Sometimes, depending on what kind of player you get, because there's some players that don't really want to like have anything to do with off the court, and then some players that you just have to bring it out of them. But like, for example, again, my mom, she does a lot of off the court stuff. So if I ever have if I have an idea or I want, she usually helps me with the off court stuff. So I say, hey, how can I talk to a player about this specific topic off the court? But if it's on the court, that's where my specialty comes in. So that's why I feel like my household is perfect, because we have my mom off the court and then we have me on the court. And she even asks me sometimes, like, well, if something happens on the court or if there's an issue on the court, she'll text me or she'll call me and she'll say, hey, what's going on? And I'll say, oh, well, this is what happened. So
that's special. You said you learned from her now. You guys kind of feed off each other in teaching. But then growing up, you're saying running around MSG, what did you learn back then that either you didn't realize at the time and now looking back, you're like, oh, wow, like that actually really influenced me?
So the number one thing I say right away is, so before I even got the job with Westchester, a lot of my friends, when they see a player, they're like amazed and like, oh, for example, I'm going to use Jalen Brunson. Oh, it's Jalen Brunson. But I grew up in there, so Jalen Brunson is just another person to me. So I make sure it's always like that with players. Like, for example, I was working with Dante all summer, helping him work out, and he was just a regular great guy to me. So that was something I grew up with. So like when I see players, it's just normal to me, because I guess since I was 5, I've been in the back, seeing how my mom works. So she works really hard, and I was like, all right, so then this is going to be real work. So this is serious. So she works 24/7. When she's home, she was picking up the phone at 3 a.m. when I was a little kid, and I didn't really pay close attention. But as I got older, I saw how much of a grind it is, which also I want to mention before I forget. When I first started working with the Summer League, we were working from like 8 a.m. to like almost midnight. And I was like, they're preparing me for the real grind, which it actually helped a lot.
Yeah. It is intense. You're doing a lot of great work, and like in VSL in particular, it's a lot, but it's very rewarding. So how did that experience mold you into the employee you are today?
Oh man, a lot. So I've done it 7 years, and I've done roles where I didn't even think I would be. Like, for example, I did game ops where I was on the court during timeouts, throwing out basketballs and shirts. And I'm not a crowd person. I'm very shy. So my first time, I was getting ready to go out there, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to go out there. I don't want to go out there. And Albert and Warren, they were always say, hey, be different. Just go out there and have fun. And so I was like, all right, let me just try it, man. So once I did it, my first try, I fell in love with it. I had a lot of energy. The next day was better. The next day was better. Then the next year, I had a different role. I was playing music. I was one of the DJ guys, and I never thought I would do something like that. So every year was something different, where to the point, by like year 5, I feel like I could do anything. You can give me something, I can do it, which prepared me for the role I'm in now, because as an intern in a G, you have to do everything. It doesn't matter. You may be picking up players in a van. You might have to look up stats, scout players. So you have to do everything as an intern. So that's why I feel like Summer League really prepared me for this.
When you went into VSL as an intern, did you have any expectations of what you wanted as your career, and then it kind of solidified, or you just had an open mind?
I had an open mind. I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but that as an intern for VSL, I was able to do so many different things. So, like for example, my mom says you have to try it before you say you don't like it. So I tried a lot of things there that at one point I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm enjoying this. So yeah, so
Okay, back to your role now. What's your favorite part of the job? You kind of talked about day to day, what the process looks like, breaking down film for your players, but what do you get the most value from for yourself?
so the most fun part from my job is when our coaching staff, we're really close and we're good friends. Sometimes we'll just sit down and like try to make practice creative with different drills. We don't want to do the same thing over and over. And sometimes we would look up plays and like try to do something different out the box. So that part is always fun because we're all coming in together and trying to like feed off of each other's brains, which my creativity side comes in from that part. So I feel like that's most fun for me. But also another part that's fun is where I get to create my own workout for a specific player. So as a player development coach, I get to focus on all the point guards and some shooting guards, but I like to make sure my workouts are creative and fun, but also we're still getting that work in, because if your workout is just a straight A to B, you might lose some of the players their focus. So you want to make it challenging, give them a goal. Sometimes I try to play defense on them and try to talk trash to them and just get them going. So
Yeah. What's something that surprised you about either the industry or just this job in particular? I mean, I'm sure going into it, you didn't realize there'd be this much outlet for creativity.
Well, the number one thing that surprised me was I've probably seen every intern that worked with me at VSL in the league, in the G or overseas. And it's crazy because we're all still close. For example, Doug.
Yeah.
I was with Doug for 7 years at VSL, and I still see him around in the league sometimes. So that's one thing. And then just, I don't know, actually, after that, just the creativity part, I just never expected that because I didn't see it in basketball, but you never know. I'm still learning till today.
Yeah, relationships are so special, especially in the sports industry. You know, it feels very small. It's a small world. You run into the same kinds of people. So talk about, what it's like seeing those interns again. And, it doesn't matter what age, what position. It seems like relationships in sports business are so much more than just, fellow employee.
Yes. So, for example, my first year, my mom said, always make sure you say hi to everyone. Doesn't matter what role they're in. So I was always saying hi to all the UNLV people, number one, because they know that building more than anybody. So if there's an emergency or you need help or gotta get somewhere quick, because you have to move quick, you make a good connection with some of those guys and they'll help you and they'll tell you. Number two, I made sure I said hi to all the coaches, front office people that were there. I made sure if they needed water, if they were good, or if they needed directions, I made sure I introduced myself and I told them I'm with the VSL and make sure they just remember my name at least, because they come every year. So they're going to eventually see me and say, hey, can I get those stat sheets? It was to the point that by year 5, I knew everyone in there and I had to say hi to every single person. So,
yeah.
And then with people that I was working with, other interns, you never know what role they're going to get or who they know as well. So like there's one intern, I forgot his name, but he's a GM for a G League team. And let's say, for example, I'm not with Westchester. I can send him my resume and then he'll see who it is. And then he might hire me as well. So
yeah,
you never know who gets what. There's a bunch of interns from my year 1, my first year, that are scouts for NBA teams. So it's like everyone is going to go somewhere and you have to make sure you keep those connections because you never know what's going to happen to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Can you give an example or share a story of running into one of your interns, post VSL?
Yeah, so it was my year 3 in the G, and I ran into actually Doug. He was one of the coaches on, I believe, Grand Rapid, and even one of the Frank Fischella, one of the kids from one of the Suns. He was also at Grand Rapids, and it was so long ago that I looked at him and I said, why do they look familiar? And I said, I don't know, but they kept looking at me, and I said, wait, I know you. And then from there, he went from there to the Go-Go. He was an assistant coach with the Go-Go. So I saw him there, and then we just made sure we we stayed connected. And it even helped because he was on the go-go and I was on Westchester. And if I played a team that they're going to play next, if he needed some information from me or help, I would help him, or if he would help me, because we knew each other for a long time and we're good friends. So, yeah.
Oh, that's special. I love that.
Yeah.
You've been in the industry a few years now, not too long, but what changes have you seen? What's most surprised you that you didn't expect to see, maybe 5 years prior?
I never saw myself trying to be an assistant coach or head coach. I'm to the point where right now I don't know if I want to be a head coach or just stick with working guys out. I talk to my mom about it every day. For example, for like a Phil Handy, I kind of want to be like a Phil Handy because, and you get to do more creativity with that role than in a head coach. I'm not a really X's and O's guy. I'm really more of like wanted to improve a player's development, like get them better and work them out that way. So to this day, every day I talk to my mama. She says, "You still don't want to be a head coach?" I said, "No, I think I want to be Phil Handy." So the next Phil Handy. So that's one big thing that I see right now. I never thought I would be in this position, though. I never seen myself as a player development guy. So it's still shocking to this day.
What are you most proud of about yourself? You didn't expect this, but you've come a long way. You're working in the industry now. What are you most proud of?
Most proud of? Everything. I'm just happy that I'm actually sticking to something and not giving up. Yeah. That's a big thing in our family. Like, if we commit to something, you have to make sure you finish it out. So even if you hate it, you just go through it. So for example, when I was in high school, I was an All-American in cross country, but I didn't want to do cross country. I had to sign up for a sport before basketball season started, and I would call my mom every day and say, "I want to give up. I just want to quit. I don't want to do this. We're running a lot in the woods. I'm from the city. I don't want this." And she said, "Hey, you have to stick it out. We're not quitting on this. We don't quit in this family." So once I looked through it, I ended up I was good, became all-American, and it helped me with basketball in my conditioning and my asthma. For example, I haven't had asthma since that day, so it helped a lot. You never know when you go through something that you hate, there might be a great end result. So you can't give up. That's one big thing.
Going off of that, is there any other advice you'd give to students or young people trying to enter the industry?
So for example, usually you start off as an intern for a team. Don't say no. Just say yes to everything. It doesn't matter what it is, because number one, if you say no, then they're not going to want you. And number two is you're learning everything. As an intern, you're gonna learn everything. I hated some things that I had to do, and because it was just not me, but I stuck through it. Now I can always go back because I know it. I tried it. I've done it. And I can go back if I want to. So the more resources you know, the more useful that you're going to be in this league. So, for example, I know video. I know how to do look up stats, scouts. I know how to do front office stuff. I know how to do stuff off the court, on the court. So the more you can bring in, the more, be a sponge, basically. Take everything in. Doesn't matter what it is, basically.
You mentioned your own personal goals. Coaching, getting that creative aspect, being a Phil Handy. So what are you doing now to work towards that?
So during the off season, if none of the Knicks players are in, because usually I would go and help and watch other coaches work the Knicks players out. If it's not that, I usually go to all the camps. So I do Adidas Euro camp in Italy, Treviso, and I was there actually 2 years ago. I was there with Rondo, and I was able to learn from Rondo, who's a great basketball player too. And one of the coaches that were there was Lloyd Pierce, who's an assistant coach for the Indiana Pacers. And he took me under his arm, and I learned from him a lot too. So I was still learning during the off season. I didn't take any breaks during the off season. And then from there, I did the Nike Skill Academy in Portland, and I was there with Rasheed Wallace, Corey Alexander, who's another great guy. So I learned a lot from them, still soaking it in, being a sponge, taking everything in. I would ask the questions on the bus ride there and back. I would ask them questions and stuff. So I was making sure I was still doing I was sticking around basketball and still learning as well during the off season, and not just taking a little vacation. And that's a big thing. The summertime is a big thing. I sign up for everything that I can.
What did that international travel teach you about where the industry is now, where the leagues are now, and where do you think they're headed?
Oh, so when I was in Italy, I was able to see a lot of international players, and they're good. They're good. The different style of play, you can see it. To this day, I still talk to some, and some of them were actually in my draft workouts for the Knicks. I saw them. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" So you learn the different style of play. It's not a lot of us. We stick to just watching the NBA, that kind of play. You learn a lot from watching like EuroLeague. I still watch some of the leagues in Croatia because I have a soft spot for Croatia. I love it. There. And even the Dominican Republic, where I'm from, I watch a lot of basketball from there, and Puerto Rico, they're starting to get better and better over there. So every style of play from every country is different, and you're learning.
And finally, the Westchester Knicks season's coming up next month. What are you most excited for?
We won the showcase last year, the winter showcase. So we're trying to get it again this year. So we're
a repeat.
We're going. Yeah, we need that.
Well, good luck. And Joel, thank you so much for joining us on SBC Audio Experience. I love getting to know you and your story, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our VSL Talent Alumni Series with SBC alum Joel Garcia. I hope you enjoyed hearing about his introduction to the sports world and learning about what it takes to jumpstart your career in the sports industry. Make sure you share this episode with your friends, family, colleagues, and anyone else interested in the business of sports. Please like us on social media, subscribe, and leave a review. You can find the show notes at sportsbusinessclassroom.com. Let us know if you listen, and if you enjoyed this episode, tag us on your Instagram story at Sports Business Classroom. Text it to a friend and spread the news of this year's SBC Business of Basketball Immersive Experience. This episode is also brought to you by Hall Pass Media, a full-service marketing agency that specializes in brand consulting, event management, digital marketing, and creative design. For more information on Hall Pass Media, go to hallpassnetwork.com.